looking for the homeowner of 252 Ash Street. Oh, yes, sir. Is this Mr. Hegarty by chance? Well, I'm giving you a call. My name is Chelsea. I work for a real estate team in the area. How are you doing today? Good. I'm calling because we have buyers that are interested in your neighborhood. So I'm just wondering if you know of anyone that may be considering selling their home in the near future. Yes, they're in the Reading area. Oh, no, I'm just asking if you happen to know of anybody who may be selling by chance. Okay, well, thank you for thinking about that. Just out of curiosity, have you had any thoughts or plans of selling your home sometime in the next 12 months? Okay, are there any circumstances that would enable you to sell maybe within the next 2 years? I understand. And just real quick, Mr. Haggerty, before I let you go, are you thinking about investing in any property over the next 12 months?
I'm sorry, is this Peter?
Okay, well, I appreciate it, and you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. You have a great day.
So, Tim, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you today. First of all, I just want to tell you how impressed I am.
Thank you.
You've done amazing things. What took me 12 years to even think about doing, some of you've done in 6 or 7, right? Is that how long you've been in business?
Yeah.
So, if you would, take us back a little bit and tell us what'd you do before real estate, and then how'd you get in real estate, and bring us kind of forward on what you've done so far in real estate.
So I was born and raised here in Austin, Texas, and I graduated from Texas A&M University in 2009. I was a finance major, and applying for jobs in the middle of the financial meltdown was a bit of a challenge. I was about a B student, AB student, so had no luck getting a job. And so I moved back to Austin, got my real estate license, and joined Keller Williams. Althea Osborne is an old friend of my family's, and so even though I wanted to go to a small boutique brokerage and learn how to sell multi-million-dollar homes, my parents just insisted that if I was going to get into real estate instead of getting a real job, that I at least talk to Althea. And so she gave me the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, and that it was history. I realized at that moment when I read that book that building a business is what I wanted to do. And so it was more about that than even real estate in the first place that got me really excited to start this journey.
Okay, awesome. So what does your real estate business look like today? I mean, what year did you start? Did you say you started?
Yeah, I started at the end of 2009. So
2010
would have been generally my first year.
Okay.
And so today we've got basically four teams: Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. Austin being our primary team that still does about 80% of our business, and we'll do over 100 million in sales, about 3 million in GCI, and I would say it's at the 6th level. I have a director of expansion who essentially runs the entire agent and junior agent team. And then I have a director of operations who runs all of our administrative, our systems, our processes, payroll, financials, all of that. And then I have our lead customer service manager. So our lead customer service manager manages basically all our listing managers, transaction management, VAs, everything like that. So basically 3 people in the business that report to me, and we succeed through those 3 people.
Okay, awesome. So I know you've been big on ISAs. Where'd you get that idea originally? I know that wasn't in the MREA book. So where'd you get that idea, and what have you done with that?
Well, so my first year I was out there just pounding the phones 4 hours a day, every day. Actually, at first it was 8 hours a day when I didn't have any clients and I didn't have any systems or efficiency. So it took me 8 hours just to talk to 20 people. But I was doing it myself. And as I continued to grow the business, I actually didn't understand that a pipeline actually eventually gets mature and starts compounding on itself, almost like compound interest, and eventually pays off tenfold. So my first year, while I made calls every single day for at least half the day every day, I only sold 9 homes from my prospecting efforts. So I thought I was going to have to work twice as hard to even sell 20 homes, right? So I didn't realize that. But what happened was my business started to grow at a rate much, much faster than I ever expected. So by my third year in the business, we did about 135 sales. And 100 of those were listings that I did. 35 were just one buyer agent that he had done in 9 months, actually. 9 months' time. And we had a couple of assistants. What was happening, though, was my team was falling apart from under me. I didn't have any experience in business leadership. I had never had employees before. I definitely didn't know how to recruit and find real talent. Didn't even really understand the difference between talent and non-talent. And so my whole team was falling apart. This was in 2012. And I remember sitting on the phone with my coach, and he basically, I told him, I said, something's got to give. I'm on the phones from 8 to 12, and I was extremely committed. I was more committed to that than probably anything I'd been committed to in my life up until that point. And so even though in the midst of all this chaos, I was still door shut until noon, nothing but lead gen. And then in the afternoons, I'd open it up, and the chaos would just hit me. But I couldn't even deal with it because I had to go. I had 3 or 4 listing appointments, right? So I would just leave, go on my listing appointments, try and manage my business in the car, on the phone, in between appointments. And I told my coach, something's got to give. I need to lose either being the listing agent or being the lead generator, so that I can actually focus on growing this business and focus on the talent and building the team. And he asked me, he said, well, which one would it be? You know, and my conclusion at first was, I got to stop going on appointments. And I realized after going through a dialogue with him that, first of all, if you look at Gary's MREA budget model, we put 10% towards lead gen, and then we put, somewhere between 20 and 40% on agent business, right? So giving up being out in the field was actually not the next step, because I'd be leaving so much money on the table. Right. So that was the first problem. The other one was that my prospecting, I was calling expireds, and so I was going on appointments against sometimes 8, 9, 10 agents. And it was one of those things where I was being so aggressive out in the field to get those listings. I would call to follow up after every appointment that I didn't get signed right away, and when they would tell me that they chose to hire somebody else, I would get in the car and drive back to their house and reconvince them to hire me before they signed with somebody else. So I knew that getting somebody with that level of commitment was going to be challenging. And so at the end of the day, I decided I'm not ready to give up that listing agent position. It's got to be on the phones, this calling position. And so I brought in an agent in the market center who was actually thinking about getting out of real estate. He'd been to Bold, he'd been to all the training classes, and his skill set was actually superior to mine on the phones. Where I had been consistent, he hadn't. And so he didn't have the money to continue and pay the bills, and so he was considering getting out. So I said, let's make a win-win deal. I'll pay you now to just come in here and make calls for me part-time, and then you can continue doing whatever you do on the side. Well, that turned into a full-time role, and then eventually it turned into this ISA role. And once he had succeeded, probably after about 2 months on the phones with me, where we'd made calls side by side, I eventually got off the phones altogether, never to get back on. Awesome. And so that turned into the next ISA and the next, and building a whole department.
Okay, so and you just proven the point. We fell our way forward, right? Sometimes our greatest obstacles become our greatest blessing. You couldn't get a job in the financial world. Thank the Lord now, right? Absolutely. Yeah. But and same thing with this. You stumbled upon it. So what have you learned about ISAs? Is there a particular person that works better? I'm sure you've learned a lot.
I've learned a lot. I've learned a ton. One of the biggest things that I've learned about the ISA role is that we as business owners should treat it as a stepping stone for whoever comes into that role. For myself, when I look back to my time on the phones, 3.5 years, every day, at least 4 hours a day, my mind was always thinking about the future and what I was building and what was to come. It was never focused on, man, I'm a telemarketer. That's my job, is I'm a telemarketer. I never thought of myself that way. My family would ask me, are you still cold calling every day for a living? I mean, don't you hate that? My friends would ask me that. And I would just kind of look at them a little bit weird, because I didn't see myself that way. I saw myself as a future business owner, and this was just a means to an end.
Right.
And that's what pulled me through. And so we've experienced where we've hired people and expected them to be in that role for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or however many years. And in their mind, they don't see what the next step is, and so there becomes a lot of turnover. And what we've learned is that we should treat that role, we should make sure that we're giving whatever vision I had for myself, I need to make sure that we set up a vision for whoever steps into that role so that they can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely.
And they're working towards something. And so we call it a junior agent role now on the team. We don't even call it the ISA role, because ISA role almost implies that's a permanent role for them. And we want them to know that we look at it as a stepping stone for them to become an agent on the team, and then eventually to become a leader on the team, hopefully. So not everybody will do it, but the best people will step up. And so having that light at the end of the tunnel, painting that opportunity vision for them is extremely important. That's probably the biggest thing we've learned about the role.
Awesome. So when they see a bigger, brighter future at the end, they're willing to go through the pain
Absolutely.
temporarily.
Yeah, it's not a fun job, but
Yeah.
they come in here every day and have a blast
Yeah.
because they're doing it for something else.
Yeah, absolutely. So when is it right for someone to hire an ISA? Because I think you're definitely paving the way for the future for real estate agents. So when do you think it's right for a person to hire an ISA, and then how do they pay them?
Yeah. So I think that question, or the answer to that question, is different depending on where you're at, who you are and where you're at in your business. So when we get into the business, we have time and money are our two major resources. And when we're brand new and we don't have a lot of money, like me, when I got in the business, I had a lot of time. Some other people get in the business, they come from another background and they already have money and they want to invest right off the bat. And they want to treat this like a business, not like a job. I had to treat it like a job because I didn't have the ability to treat it like a business yet. And I didn't even know how. So for new agents who don't have money, you want to go out there and do this all yourself. And you're going to first hire an administrative assistant. You're going to first get all of the administrative stuff off your plate. Then you're probably going to hire a second administrative assistant. And then at that point, once you're not dealing with any admin, systems building, or anything like that, and you're not dealing with any customer service, transaction management, listing management, once all that's being fully taken care of, then the next step in Gary's MREA model would be to hire a showing assistant. I could see the next step being to hire a showing assistant or to hire an ISA. This would be the point at which you begin to leverage your sales activities. And if you come into the business with money and you come into the business ready to invest right off the bat, it could be an opportunity for you to hire somebody right off the bat. The challenge you might run into is that you haven't done it yourself, so you might not know what the goals are. You might not know what's realistic, what's attainable. You might not understand fully how to set up a culture dedicated towards just building these ISAs up day in and day out. So the option there would be go to coaching, go into a coaching program, get that training, get your ISA in coaching. There's opportunities for you to help with that. And yet there's also agents who like yourself who have built big referral-based businesses. Prospecting is not in the DNA. That's not how you built the business. It's not. You don't have this call center mentality. And so at that point, a lot of agents have found success in outsourcing. And so there's different ways to outsource ISA. One of the ways would be that it's why we started Phone Animal, our call center here locally in Austin. It's basically an extension of our ISA division to do for other agents. You could also outsource to other countries like the Philippines through My Outdesk and companies like that. There's upsides and downsides of all of that stuff. So again, I recommend hiring a coach or at least going to training and getting as much background information before you just dive in.
Absolutely. So if there was agents out there that were listening to this that did want to start building their ISA team, what would be the first step you'd tell them to do? I know they've got a chance for Phone Animal, and I'd like for you to talk a little bit more about that option for them.
Yep.
But if they were going to do it, they thought they were going to do it on their own, what would be their next step?
Well, it depends on if they're a prospecting-based agent or if they're not. So if they're not a prospecting-based agent, if it's somebody who has a big business based on referral and now they're ready to start building their own call center, I'd go hire the right person. Right. I'd go hire the right person who's got the background, who's got the experience, who's got the mentality, and building that is going to be their passion and their excitement. I wouldn't try and go do it yourself. Right. If you've got the business and you're ready to go. If you're an agent who grew up in the real estate industry prospecting yourself, maybe you were Mike Ferry or a Keller Williams prospector, like I was. My recommendation there would be go to Recruit Select. Make sure that you understand how to find talent, how to identify the difference between talent and non-talent. And then what I would do is go after, there's three main sources where we find our people. The first one is referral from our own people. So I'd first go to your own employees or your own allied resources and just make sure that they know exactly what it is that you're looking for and get them on the hunt. That's where honestly our best ISAs have come from friends of friends or friends of employees. The second one would be go to your local colleges. There's a lot of people that are going to be graduating at the end of December, at the end of the year, or in May, and they'd even be willing to do an internship up until they graduate. We found some really amazing candidates in college. They're at the front end of their career, and they're willing and able to do the work necessary at a low pay for future payoff. So definitely, I recommend looking at somebody on the front end of their career, and universities is a great place to look for that. And the final one would be create a job ad and get it posted online. What I would do, though, is there's two things that you can do. We came up with the term phone animal for our company because our job ad said, we're looking for a phone animal. We said, we're looking for somebody who literally just wants to attack the phones day in and day out. What it did was it chased away 99% of the people that might have applied. So we got limited candidates, but when we got candidates, we got the right types of candidates. We got people who were hungry, ready for an opportunity, and it was almost always a good interview. And so we don't post as many job ads today because we have so much success going through our own allied resources and our own network. However, when you don't have a big network or if you don't have a lot of allied resources to give you referrals, make sure you're clear in your job ad. And then what I'd recommend is instead of having them send a resume in, just have them film a quick 1-minute video of themselves and why they're looking for the job and send it in to you. That way you can review videos and see people, how they act, how they present themselves, how they sound. And then the next thing I would do is go to a phone screen because these are phone people. You want to hear how they are over the phone.
Absolutely. Good deal. All right, so I assume you pay them small salary plus an upside.
Yeah, so there's multiple ways you could pay them. So one would be 1099 them, and one would be W-2. So if you're going to 1099 them, for our junior agents, we 1099 them because it's a stepping stone into the agent role where they're going to be 1099 anyway. And so what we do is we pay them per nurture, per qualified lead that they identify from scratch and put into our pipeline for future follow-up. So the goal there is we're essentially wanting them to have an on-target earnings of about $2,000 to $2,500 a month. It's not much, and again, that's why it's a stepping stone role. So to get $2,000 to $2,500 a month, we know what's realistic is to do what I used to do when I did this, which was get 5 qualified nurtures a day. It can be challenging when you're circle prospecting, and it does take a lot of work to average 5 a day, and yet it can be done, and it is being done. So 5 a day is $100 a month. So 100 times $20 or $25 each will get you in that range. So you could pay them literally per lead and keep them incentivized that way. Another way would be W-2ing them and just giving them a flat base, $2,000 a month, $1,500 a month, some teams as high as $2,500 a month. And then to bonus based on closed GCI from leads that were sourced by the ISA. So 5 to 10% of closed GCI is what's really common in our industry right now. So, for example, in Austin, we have an $8,000 average commission. So that would be about $400 for $400 to $800 bonus on deals that close that they sourced from scratch. And then the final thing would be you could even pay commissions or bonuses rather than off the closings. You could pay them off of clients taken. At the end of the day, the ISA can't control what happens once the client's taken, and yet they can control making sure these are qualified clients that are actually going to sign up with one of our agents. So you could bonus them even smaller amounts just off the client taken, like $100 or $200 rather than waiting for the deal to close.
Okay. And so for anybody in the audience that this kind of makes their head hurt thinking about all that, tell us about Phone Animal. How does that help agents who want to do this but don't want to do it all themselves?
Yes, and we do have a MAPS, through MAPS, we have an ISA Mastery coaching program where we basically coach on all of this. And it's ongoing. You can enroll now anytime you want. And it's one-on-one coaching, it's group coaching, it's trainings every week, but it's also one-on-one attention multiple times every month.
So they could actually get one-on-one coaching on how to do this themselves.
How to do it themselves, and it's one contract for your whole team. So as you hire your ISAs and bring them in, they're part of the program. So they get to be on the training calls. You can even elect them as the person who takes the one-on-one calls. Awesome. Once you hire them on, they're the ones that need to be trained now, not you. You need to be trained to help set up the program as the rainmaker and then eventually pass that on. And if you have multiple ISAs, they can all be part of the program. It's just one contract. So we've done that to help people to build their own call centers because there's so many teams out there that don't want to and don't need to outsource it.
Sure.
Phone Animal would be a way to outsource it. If you just you're not wanting to build a call center mentality in your business, but you do want to make sure that you capitalize on that lead source and you don't want to just just completely disregard it, that would be when you outsource it. You're going to hire one, maybe two. If you were going to hire 3 or 4 or 5, you're definitely wanting to build your own call center because it can get pricey outsourcing it.
Sure.
So for us, what Phone Animal is basically my ISA staff. We separated. They moved out to a call center building and started building. They became the staff, the recruiters, the trainers, the coaches, the manager, the floor managers for this call center that we built called Phone Animal. So what you're hiring when you hire Phone Animal is kind of that management team. You're basically, it's kind of the easy button so that you don't have to worry about turnover. They're doing all the recruiting, re-recruiting,
Sounds
training, retraining, coaching, all that stuff. So with Phone Animal, what you get them in increments of half so that it's not ridiculously expensive. So it's actually cheaper than hiring somebody in-house because you're getting a 4-hour-a-day person rather than an 8-hour-a-day person. So it's also a way to dip your toe in and just start getting used to it. You also get a client manager assigned to you, a client success manager, who's going to be calling you every single week. Every week they call you and talk to you about the results, what's going on. They actually mentor you on how to get the data, where to get the data from, which dialers to use, the follow-up process, the scripts to use when following up, all of that stuff. So we don't leave you hanging. Our goal is to empower you to actually be effective with the leads that end up being generated for you.
Awesome. And so how does someone reach out and get information about Phone Animal?
Just go to the website, www.phoneanimal.com, and there's just a place right there where you can register, or you can call the number right there, and Nick or somebody from the office will answer and get back in touch with you right away.
Awesome. Great job, Tim.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Great. So we're here with Sarah from Phone Animal. So Sarah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Linda.
And what I'd like to do, if you would, just kind of give us a background of what you do here, what your title is, and what your role is at Phone Animal, and give us a little background about that, and even what your background was before Phone Animal.
Okay, fantastic. So I was in life insurance sales before I got recruited by Tim's team. I knew one of his buyer agents I went to high school with, actually a couple of his buyer agents I went to high school with, and they were like, you have got to come join our team. And I was like, I'm happy doing what I'm doing, life insurance, it's okay, but it's good money, and I'm just gonna
And everybody wants some life insurance, right?
Right, yeah. So 6 months or so went by, and he just kept pestering me. He's like, send me your resume. So finally I was just like, just leave me alone. Just take there's my resume, whatever. And a couple of weeks later, I got a call from Tim, and he was like, hey, come in and let's talk about it. And I was like, okay. So came in, and I was just blown away by the recruit select process. It was amazing. I left after interviewing with Tim and recruit select. I left feeling like he knew more about me after that process than my previous employer that I'd been with for 2 years knew about me. Yeah, and more about what I wanted out of life and my goals and all of that good stuff. So it was a no-brainer. I was like, okay, made the switch. Real estate was way more fun than life insurance, so and never looked back. And so I was with Tim's team. I came on as the lead coordinator, the inbound lead coordinator, and loved the position, developed a bunch of systems that Tim's still using for, working leads through his system. And then when Sam moved on to his new position, Tim decided to bring me into the lead ISA role. So I took over the ISA department, and at that point, Tim already had it in the works that he was going to do, we were going to start the Phone Animal kind of side of it. He had a couple of agents request information about seeing if they could have us call for him, call for the agents. And so that's kind of how it was born. And we were like, well, if people want us to do this, let's start a business. Yeah. So we did. And we started in March is when we actually moved into this space. We just started out of the market center. We just turned our ISA department into, it was fun. We got to like 7 people in our little bitty crammed ISA room, and we were like, okay, we got to do something different. So we moved into this space in March, and we moved in here with like 7 people. Okay. And we now have over 100 ISAs. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been an adventure over the last 9 months for sure.
Awesome. So what does the day in the life of Sarah look like? I know it's probably different every day.
Yeah, it's different every day. My mornings are usually filled with making sure, training my new client success managers and making sure that they're all, because we're bringing up new clients all the time, so we're always having to bring up client managers to make sure that our clients are taken care of and all that good stuff. So it's training them and making sure that they're able to then relay that training onto our ISA floor. And then obviously my Mondays are filled with my one-on-ones with my staff. I have about 8 direct reports that I make sure I do my weekly accountability meetings with. And then the rest of it, I like to make sure I take a spin around the floor and try to get to know the new faces and stuff, because it can be, they can feel a little lost in the shuffle sometimes. There's so many of them. So I like to show my face around the floor and make sure that everybody knows who I am and knows I'm watching.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. And then my afternoons, I will, call up any clients that we have that need attention or need, specific coaching on conversion is what I do a lot of coaching our agents on conversion. But mostly
being able to convert the
leads once we send them over. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's definitely the biggest question we get asked is what do we do with our leads once we get them?
Yeah.
So that's typically what my afternoons are spent doing. And then MAPS coaching too.
So is that the client is asking you what to do with the leads?
Mm-hmm.
They get them, because so much is important on what they do once you get them the lead, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've had a few clients that are these leads are just not that strong, and I'm like, let's talk about conversion. Let's talk about what we're doing on the back end, because I know this model works. I know from experience that
you got a team that's doing it every day.
Yep. Exactly. So we know that nurture process works, and so it's a lot of times it's about coaching them through how to make the most of those leads.
So do your client care people, do they start out as ISAs first?
Most of them, yeah. We have a couple that we've brought in from outside, but we were just talking about kind of making sure that they understand that there's opportunity within our company. So it's a way to bring in a higher quality candidate from the beginning, from the get-go, if they know that there's opportunity for advancement here within our company. So we can bring in a higher quality ISA to be on the phones for our clients if they, like I said, know that there's growth opportunity here.
Yeah.
So even if we don't get to keep them in that role as long as we'd like to, we get a higher quality person in those roles.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what's the biggest challenge you have running this kind of organization?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest challenge is reporting. Right now, there's, as most everybody knows, the real estate industry is way far behind on software. For a dialer that integrates with a CRM and the tracking that goes along with a high volume kind of call center environment. The real estate industry is way far behind on that kind of technology. So I would say the biggest, I have a virtual assistant who they log into every client's account every day to pull up the numbers that we need to see, because we have to see those numbers.
Absolutely.
So it's a very manual process right now. Wow. We're working on getting that, and we're working with a programmer to kind of get that digitalized and streamlined so we can get more fast updates and know it throughout the day instead of waiting until the day's end to get all the numbers. So I think that's our biggest challenge is the technology. And then, of course, space. You saw how crowded it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just making sure that we have enough space for our growth.
Okay. So how do you hold your ISAs accountable? I mean, you got to have standards when you have people.
Yep.
That's what makes it works best is when their standards are at least everybody's on the same page about what the requirement is or what's expected. So how do you do that, and what does that look like?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is we use we use 4-on-1s, and we do that. I do that with my team, and then I actually meet with all of our success managers on a weekly basis. So I meet with them on Mondays, and then from that meeting, they actually work with their teams of ISAs. So they have a team of seven or 8 ISAs that each one of them actually has they directly report to that client manager. We call them client success manager, but they manage the ISAs too.
Okay.
So
they handle the clients and the ISAs. So they will communicate with clients, and then they oversee 7 ISAs.
Right. Yeah. So they oversee the clients, and then they oversee the ISAs who call on behalf of those clients to make sure that the communication is seamless between the two parties. And yeah, so I have my one-on-ones with them, and then they have their one-on-ones with their ISAs, and they're basically holding them accountable for dial time, making sure that obviously they show up every day, they're on time, and that they meet their dial time requirements. And then outside of that, it's obviously nurtures and any specific coaching that they need or challenges that they're facing. If they're having any challenges with getting nurtures, we're digging into the data and kind of finding out why is it a turnover rate issue with the data, or is it a skills issue? And if it's a skills issue, then at that point we're bringing in our trainer to actually work one-on-one with that person and make sure that they're good to go.
Okay. So is there like a certain number of leads a person that's good in that role should be able to get in a day, or?
Sure. So if the stars align, right, because there's a lot of factors that go into it. There's data quality. So you have to make sure that your data quality is good, that the area that you're calling in is a high enough turnover rate that. But if we see all of those things kind of align, which I could talk for an hour about all of the different metrics, but if those things align, we should see somewhere between 3 and 5 nurtures a day would be kind of our goal for an 8-hour shift. Now we break that down into two 4-hour shifts, because that's what we do here. We do part-time shifts.
Okay.
So a part-timer that's calling 4 hours a day we want them to source between like 1 and 2 nurtures per day. That would be a.
Do you find that people call better if they call for 4 hours instead of 8? I mean, is there kind of like a capacity?
We definitely want them to take like a good long break. We don't
Right.
want anybody going more than a 4-hour shift and a 4-hour shift, because we just find that they definitely get some lag
Right.
towards the end of their shift. So, and we want them to make sure that we're fresh. The best times of day to call are from 8 to 9 in the morning, and then like 4 to 5 in the evening. So we definitely try to make sure we have freshness in those times. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like following the willpower schedule, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's kind of it's like first thing in the morning, people are ready to
Yeah.
talk to you and ready to go, and then in the evening they're so tired that
Yeah.
they'll just tell you
Yeah.
whatever you want to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe they just got off, and so they've got a new vamp of willpower because they just got off work or
Oh,
something.
that's actually a good point
Who
too.
knows?
Yeah.
So, what kind of person? What have you learned from putting different people in those roles? Is there certain characteristics you're looking for that work better, and some that you've learned?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think that the biggest thing that I look for when I'm looking at a new hire is that grit. Someone who is is okay with the hearing no, right? They're okay with that rejection, and can recover from it. And then the other thing is just that, again, grit, where they're gonna put in those those hours, because it's a numbers game. It's just at the end of the day, there's no other excuse for it. It's a numbers game.
Right.
So someone who's gonna be okay putting in the time and handling the rejection. Those are the two biggest things.
So does that mean you never hire a high eye because their number one thing is to be liked?
Yeah, well, and it's tough for high eyes. Usually, if I
They go home in tears a lot, right?
yeah, it can be tough for them, especially at first. The good thing about eyes, though, is that everybody there's always a good side to it too,
Yeah.
because high eyes tend to be people who are really curious about other people. So if they can get through the rejection part of it and kind of toughen up their skin, then the high eyes usually do pretty well. They end up doing pretty well because they're so curious about people. Because when they do get someone on the phone, they're so happy to have someone that's nice and talking to them that they're like, I want to know everything about you. And so they end up providing really good information to the client. So.
Yeah, they're very charismatic and they have an it factor to them. So if they and I've always found from my own calling in real estate, it's a different kind of calling. It's not as people aren't ticked off at you. They're interested in real estate, and so you typically can figure out a way to get them in a conversation, engage them.
Absolutely, and that's really the high eyes definitely can build an instant rapport faster than say sometimes like a D personality is like.
Yeah.
Just get to it real fast and can miss some opportunities sometimes. But you also want that D because they're gonna do the hours.
They're about achievement.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So it just depends. And then we have some SCs that have done fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think it really comes down to, yes, there's certain personality traits that really matter, but it also comes down to the individual's just determination to be good at the job, and that individual drive to be good at what you're doing. I think matters kind of more than say any particular personality profile.
Gotcha. So what about training? Do you find that do they do so much script training first? Do they have a week they go through first before they can get on a phone? I mean, how do they?
Yeah,
What's
we
that
have a
training look
week-long
like?
training that they go through
Is that
before they get
person
on.
to person? Is that in a classroom?
It's in a classroom setting, so
Okay.
we do it in here. There's usually between 7 and 12 new hires each week that we're, making sure that they're good to go on the scripts. We teach them about disc profiles. We teach them about mirror matching, all those types of things. And then, of course, just the script. And then the technology, of course, is a factor, too. And it's a week long, and then they have to test out at the end of it with either myself, our VP, Mike, who you met earlier, or one of the client managers. So we want to make sure that someone other than the trainer is actually testing them out. So kind of it checks and
They
balances.
get attached to them.
Right, right. Because
maybe-
they get attached and then they don't want to fail them and things
Yeah.
like that. Although the trainer's really good at saying, after day 2 or so, you're probably not going to make it. Let's just move on with the rest of the people. So
Yeah, got it.
yeah.
So, when the people come in and they do 4-hour shifts, do they get any other training after that first week, or is it pretty much?
Yeah,
Do they find
so-
sometimes their conversion falls down, then you go back to training, or
Yeah, so we
do
don't.
you watch that so you can
Oh,
see?
absolutely. We don't actually put them through. We wouldn't necessarily put them through another training class. If it's that bad, we'd probably just.
Yeah.
It would probably be
Just
time
not
to let them
working
go.
out,
Yeah. But if it's something that we can work through on a one-on-one basis, our client managers will actually order training with our trainer. So our trainer has a couple of half days that he has during the week that he'll actually spend those half days actually doing one-on-one trainings with our anybody who's struggling with conversion. And then of course our client services managers, services department, they've all been ISAs. All of them have actually been ISAs. So they can provide that. They provide training on the floor, but anytime we need a little bit more extra one-on-one attention, we'll call in the trainer.
The trainer.
Yeah.
And I've heard of systems, and I've always thought they were interesting. I'd love to have them for like some of our team leaders in our region and stuff, but that there's actually systems where you can actually hear someone on a call. Do y'all have a system like that, or you have to just kind of walk around and hear them?
Yeah, it depends on our clients. Some of our clients will do Mojo recording. So if they do the recorded
And then you
calls,
can listen to
we
them.
can listen to them, and that's a great training tool.
Yes, I
I
love
always
it.
suggest that our clients do pay the extra $25 a month to get the recording. They don't all do it, but it's always it's a really good solution for us to be able to, and it's really good for training purposes for our classroom studies too, because we can actually put up live calls in our classroom setting and let them listen to how
Somebody else does it.
Yeah.
Somebody that's really good or used to doing it.
or someone that didn't do such a good job. It's
Yeah.
it's a training moment too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe that's the way they learn best. So, if agents are out there and they're looking to do ISAs, when do you think it's ideal for a person to, number one, have an ISA, and then when do you find it's better for someone just to call in someone like Phone Animal to do it?
I mean, there's no doubt that doing it yourself in-house, if you can be successful at it, is the best way to do it. It's going to be it's just going to be, you're going to get the best results that way. There's no doubt that that's the most optimal way to do it. And there are resources out there that can help you kind of develop those skills if that's what you want to do. At the point where I would suggest an agent call Phone Animal would be someone who gets to a point where Tim got in his business, where he's calling 4 hours a day, he's calling 4 hours a day, he's calling 4 hours a day, and then he got to a point where clients were at him. He had taken enough clients that they were starting to budge into that really important lead generation time that he had blocked for himself. And when it got to that point, that's when he hired his ISA. So if you're an agent and you're getting to that point, that might be a good time to bring in Phone Animal if you're not ready to, say, do it on your own. Although that would be an agent that I would say it would be a good bet to do it on your own. If that's something that you want to do eventually, it might be a good idea to actually start your ISA department at that point. It's also a good time for Phone Animal to come in.
So when you see people that do finally call you to do Phone Animal, have they already tried it on their own, and what kind of things do they run into that they don't expect?
Yeah, so I think we definitely have people that have tried it and that haven't had success, and a lot of it is around hiring, because it is, as we talked about, the turnover. The turnover is high. Not only that, but it's just hard to find anybody that wants to do this more than, say, 6 months or so without being like, okay, now I want to become a buyer agent, or now I want to be an agent on your team, which is great, but then you have to do it all over again, and you've got to do all the training, all the
it's a
skills
revolving
level.
door.
Yeah, it is, and that's what we experience with Tim's team too. Is that, and at some point you just have to accept that that's the way it is, and just kind of roll with it. But if those people, and then that's one case where you actually have someone that comes in that's good, that you end up moving out of the role.
Right.
The other issue is that they don't provide the right data. They don't give them enough data to call on to be successful. They're not doing kind of the back end work to make sure that the areas that they're calling on that are set up to be successful in. Because it is, yes, cold calling can work in any market out there. I absolutely believe that is true. But you do have to be a little bit strategic about it and set realistic expectations based on your strategy. So if you want them to call in a multi-million-dollar neighborhood, great, go for it. But you have to alter your expectations. That person's not going to get 5 nurtures a day.
Right. Because the turnover's not the same.
But I see agents get stuck on that, like, well, you're supposed to be getting 5 nurtures a day, and you're failing because you're not.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the ISA's fault. And so yeah, there's definitely been many agents that come to us after having tried it. But then there are also agents that are like, I just not going to do it. Like just easy button here. Let's let you take over.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys can be successful in either way, whether they've tried it already before or whether they come to you.
It absolutely. As we were mentioning before, we have a lot of our clientele is from like the referral sphere based businesses. That's where I find that we have the most people come in from that kind of sector of real estate, that they've built their business on referrals, and they haven't even gotten into this like calling and their aspect.
Ever.
No, they've never even tried it, and they've built really successful businesses on the other side of it. So they're like, well, I haven't even touched this part of it. Like, let's try it. And then we also have people who have done it, and then they want Phone Animal to take it over. I do find that the people who have done it before are a little bit more. They get it a little bit more.
They appreciate you a little bit more.
They do. Yeah, they're a little bit more appreciative than our referral clients, which don't tell them.
Yeah. So what are some of the systems that you find is helpful, whether they actually hire Phone Animal or they don't, that they have in place? Because obviously they have to have certain systems, even if they hire you, because you don't have all those systems necessarily. Like, what are the systems they have to have?
Absolutely. So we suggest everybody go with Cole Resource Directory for data. It's a way that you can pull down a massive amount of data really, really quickly, and you can play with it by areas and neighborhoods and all that good stuff. We want you to start with 60,000 records in your Mojo account, which is another tool. So Mojo is the dialer system that we want you to use. But we want to start with 60,000 records. That's enough to keep an ISA, a part-time ISA, good for 6 months or so, calling all fresh data. And then they can just start that list over again. Or you can expand your area and have them call another area for you. But we want you to start with that big bulk of data, because what I find a lot of times is people will start with like a little bit of data, and then and we don't let them do this anymore. We learned that it was not the best way to do it, but they would start with a little bit of data, and then but we would run out. We'd call through it, and then what do? We just have to call through it again, and so we're calling the same people once a week to try to pull stuff out of it. And when you do that, you have diminishing returns every time you call through a list.
So the bigger the list, the better.
The bigger the list, the better.
And so that means they've purchased that list, or they have that much data in there.
And there are different data brokers out there that you can use, but Cole is really affordable, and we've had great results with it. As long as you can keep your contact rate between 8 and 12%, that's really what you're looking for. And we found that Cole can do that pretty and really quickly too. So Cole Directory is one. Mojo is the dialer. So you want to, and there are other dialers out there, but Mojo seems to be kind of the standard, and it's what we use here. Everybody uses Mojo. It's a triple line dialer, so it can dial 3 seats at one time. So basically, you're calling 3 people at the same time, and whichever one picks up first is the one that comes on the phone. Either way you do it, if you're going to do it on your own, just use an auto dialer. I don't care if it's Mojo or 5.9 or Vulcan or whatever the case may be, but use an auto dialer, because you cannot get the results that you need without an auto dialer.
That kind of system.
Yeah, absolutely. So those 2 things. Additionally, we're actually just starting this. We're going to be working with Market Snapshot, so that, because when we're on these calls, we don't always get a nurture, but sometimes people are like, Yeah, you can absolutely take my email address down and send me information about my market. Like I'd be open for that from your agent, and so we'll take their email address down, and then what we suggest is our clients use Market Snapshot to get them information about the market, and then viral marketing for conversion, videos, and things like that on the back end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this possibility you could ever do this for other companies too, or you think it's just going to stay real estate related, or could you actually probably branch this into for other industries?
Yeah, so we've been talking. I don't know if Tim wants me to
Okay,
mention
never
this, but well, we've been talking about team leaders actually.
Okay. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so for recruiting purposes.
Yeah, that'd be
and
great.
then we've also been thinking about doing some commercial side of the real
Yeah,
estate,
sure.
just to kind of branch out a little bit. We want to really make sure that we get the residential side just locked down and loaded before we start doing too many different things. We want to keep our one thing
Yeah,
intact.
sure. Absolutely.
But we're definitely thinking about some beta testing on team leaders for recruiting, and then the commercial side.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully I triggered their brain about that today, so you'll do it for you guys first.
Yeah.
When we talked about wealth building and passive income. So
yeah,
maybe you do it for
exactly.
you guys first.
Yeah.
So Sarah, what should I have asked you but I didn't, that as it pertains to you running this kind of operation of Phone Animal and overseeing ISAs and things like that?
Let's see. You asked me about my biggest challenge, so that one's that. I think maybe how about the biggest, the most rewarding part of it?
Yeah. So what's the most rewarding part of what you do?
I would say the most rewarding part of my day-to-day and my month-to-month would be when an agent calls me and they're like, I just took my first listing from a Phone Animal lead. And then not only that, that's a great part, because I know that the agent is getting value out of what I'm providing. But the other part of it is that then I get to walk out on the floor and say, hey, brand new ISA who's been calling for 2 weeks, your agent just took a listing from the lead that you sent over. So and then everybody goes crazy, and there's a bell ringing and there's clapping, and it's fun.
So that leads me to another question. Do they get incentivized money wise if something comes in? I mean, or some people are motivated by money.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think hungry college students would be hungry for money.
Yeah. So we don't, because our agents don't pay us anything on the back end. It's kind of a flat fee service. We don't do any back end commissions for the
gotcha.
ISAs, but what we do have is a bonus structure set up for our success. So when we have profit, we actually share back a portion of our profit to our ISA floor, and then it depends on what tier they're in as far as their production. So if the more nurtures they get, the higher the tier they're in, and the more profit gets shared out to them.
That's great. So do a profit share program inside your company.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Because talent only leaves when they think there's no more opportunity or somebody else is winning and they're losing. So
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
We want to try to keep it as much as possible.
Great.
Yeah.
Sarah, thank you.